Onyx not too long ago made a post saying how do you pronounce momentum? That's literally the post, by the way. They said, how do you pronounce momentum? Now, nothing I say is financial advice, but even besides that, I think they have more of a meaning when it comes to this, right? Because as we're approaching 2026, that is hypothetically going to be the alleged year that Onyx is going to be launching the mainnet of their layer 1 blockchain called Goliath. Now, what's really going to happen, because a lot of people like to say, what momentum do they even speak of? Take a look at XCN. It's below 200 million in terms of market cap. It's not doing the best. I'm totally aware of that. But I think there's more to this, right? I think it's just more so kind of related to the fundamentals. And arguably, if we take a look at it, launching their layer 1 blockchain is like the most relevant thing I think they've done, if they could do it. You know what I mean? Because what previously in the past can I say, oh, this is very relevant when it comes to Onyx that they did? Nothing much, really, in my perspective, right? So if they could actually do that, it seems to me as a pretty kind of fascinating thing, because fundamentally, historically, I haven't really seen much. We saw the market cap around $1 billion back in January, approximately. But it wasn't like it had to do too much with the fundamentals. It was just more so the change in sentiment. So to me, when I take a look at this, I think this is not necessarily about the price, right? I think it's more so about kind of what they're trying to do fundamentally. And this is what I respect about Onyx. It's because they actually work on the fundamentals. I mean, what can they do literally about the price of XCN? You know what I mean? Like, for instance, can I do anything about this? No. You know? Could Onyx control, hey, when we're gonna launch the testnet of our layer 1 blockchain, the price is gonna be at this thing or that point? Like, how is it even realistic? You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't seem that way to me. But if a project, regardless of the price movements, they just keep building and just sort of keep developing, that's something that I like to see, because sometimes it kind of lays down the sort of foundation for maybe what could be, right? And I think it sets a nice tone to 2026. It doesn't mean that XCN could do something, but then at least when it comes to Onyx, if they can actually deliver on launching their layer 1 blockchain in Q1 of 2026, in which they're planning to allegedly do, I think that right there would be a good sort of morale booster for me, where I would feel like, okay, I'm pretty happy to see that. And I think if there was an altcoin season, I think something like this could somewhat contribute to sort of the notoriety of something like Onyx, because Onyx, without, right, even the testnet of their layer 1 blockchain, we saw XCN reach what it did back in January, which is, again, around $1 billion in terms of market cap. So what could it have reached back then if, let's say, there was the testnet, or let's say there was the mainnet? Who knows? But it wouldn't surprise me if necessarily it was something. And here's the thing. I think also XCN not seeing an altcoin season this year, I don't think it's necessarily such a, bad thing to me fundamentally, because if I take a look at it in the long term, had January been an altcoin season, for whatever reason, it's clearly not, but I'm saying if that was the case, I feel like maybe the ceiling when it comes to XCN at that point would have been a little bit limited, because at that point, there was no like Goliath testnet, right? There was no testnet for its layer 1 blockchain, let alone the mainnet. So it would have been a little bit kind of, I think, limited in that sense. Now that there's more fundamentally going on when it comes to Onyx, could things hypothetically be different if there was an altcoin season? It wouldn't surprise me if maybe, arguably, hypothetically, that was the case. Just because I feel like fundamentally there's more going on when it comes to Onyx right now when compared to before. So when they make a post like this and a lot of my friends are complaining and saying, what are they even talking about? Why do they even want to talk about momentum? Take a look at this. Clearly the momentum of anything, they say, is downwards, right? Well, to me, I get that. But then at the same time, in terms of the fundamentals, I think sometimes a lot of my friends don't really consider that when it comes to Onyx, but I consider, the layer 1 blockchain when it comes to Onyx in terms of what they're trying to do with Goliath. Also, on top of that, I take a look at just kind of the intent of the project, still trying to improve fundamentally. I am still a fan when it comes to that. So I don't think overall this post is kind of just like meant to cause any sort of, direct reaction. I think it's more so just explaining what they're kind of planning to do, I guess. Maybe arguably that's the way to take a look at it moving forward, even though it's more so of a vague statement, right? It's more ambiguous, but at the same time, I feel like it's more so towards its fundamental standpoint of view. However, also on top of that as well, kind of my perception when it comes to Onyx as of right now is that I'm still staying patient, I'm waiting, and I'm holding. That's it. What's going to happen in 2026? Who knows? But I'll be making more updates when it comes to XCN. Hypothetically, 25 cents. It hasn't left my mind. I mean, clearly, we're not doing the best as of right now when it comes to Onyx, right? XCN is still over 50 times lower than that. I'm totally aware of that. But sometimes I kind of ask myself this question, right? Is XCN, hypothetically, closer to a ceiling or a floor? Kind of my perception is this. What seems a little bit more logical to me? XCN going around 53 times lower than where it is currently. So again, we're talking about a market cap right now, which is around 168 million, that going around 50 times lower, right? Or in the opposite direction. Keep in mind, XCN has over 100,000 holders, around 140,000 actually, to be somewhat exact, right? When I take a look at it, okay, imagine if, let's say, the market cap when it comes to like XCN is around 3 million, right? Is that hypothetically even a logical feasibility type of scenario? Or should I say, let me rephrase that, a logical, hypothetical, feasible scenario, I guess. With over 140,000 holders, I mean, that would have to mean something drastic happened to Onyx, right? Now, when I take a look at it, is XCN over 5 times lower than where it was back in January of 2025? Yes. So my thing is this. Is it hypothetically closer to a ceiling or a floor? You know, this is just my perception. If someone told me maybe it's closer to a ceiling than a floor, I don't know if I would necessarily disagree with that. Just because in order for XCN to go over 50 times lower than right now, it's just like the amount of things that would need to happen in order for that to be the case would be so drastic when compared to, let's say, in the opposite direction. Because in the opposite direction, you know, maybe sometimes people like to say, hey, the only ingredient left is maybe arguably an altcoin season, which I wouldn't necessarily, I think, disagree with. But on the flip side, you know, a lot would need to happen as opposed to the opposite way, right? So in my kind of mindset, I get it, XCN is low, but sometimes, you know, I think about it like, is it closer to a floor or a ceiling? That's kind of my perception. I have not given up when it comes to XCN. However, this is just my mindset. I'm not telling anyone to do anything. And in the meantime, though, kind of my reaction when it comes to XCN overall is that, sure, the listings are not necessarily the best. It's not the most popular project out there, but I don't think it really needs to, just because it's in a niche that doesn't have that many direct competitors. Sure, I think there is like a lot of competition outside of its niche, but if I take a look at it, it's kind of arguable. Most closest and direct competitor is something called Zebic, and Zebic's not too far off from this either. So they're kind of like, you know, 1 and 2 sort of. Sure, I mean, XDC, XLM, or should I say Stellar, it's still way bigger than this, but I'm saying like its most direct competitor is something like, you know, Zebic. So arguably, I'm just still staying patient. I'm still holding though. I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but yeah, that's pretty much about it. And I hope you all have a very nice day, and I hope you all enjoy your holidays. It's Mali the Captain, and I'll be making more updates when it comes to this, and I'll catch you all in the next one.